Thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Construction podcast. How are you today?
Hey, Jad, excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Let's dive right in. We like to keep these short and sweet. Would love to first just hear from you. What problem is Algoma aiming to solve in the real estate development process, and then how is your platform providing a solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at Algoma. We're an AI native real estate development platform. Fundamentally, we are solving the housing supply crisis in the US. The US needs 5 million new homes just to meet current demand. And we're simply just not building enough housing at a price point that people can afford. And a lot of this is due to the issues in pre-construction, how difficult it is to get from a project that is a site to something that's ready for construction. And so Algoma's platform streamlines this whole process. It allows developers to take their sites, run lots of scenarios, get the permits that they need, and ultimately get to a point where they can actually begin construction and deliver the housing that's required.
What made you want to start this company in the first place? Because everything that you just said in there is a basically separate headache, and kind of pulling it all together is not an easy thing to do. I guess what was your breaking point that made you want to start this company?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the construction and construction tech space my whole career. I started out as a civil engineer, working for like large construction engineering companies, and then moved to the US construction services firm, AECOM, and was part of a technology group. And we were responsible for building new technology and then finding cutting edge technology to change how we deliver construction projects. And it really just got to a point of, speaking to developers again and again, hearing the same problems, the same issues, how difficult it is to take those projects forward, how much time is wasted, how manual and repetitive the process is. And that really gave us the confidence that, we would be able to build something that could find efficiencies and save developers time and save developers cost.
And this wasn't just confidence, amongst you and the team. There
Mm.
was clear confidence amongst your investors, right? You raised a $2.3 million seed round, which congratulations. That's huge. That's a good sized seed round. So, what reasons did your lead investor and other investors? Well, let's talk a little bit about is it Zakuwa? Is that how I say it? Zakuwa
Exactly.
Ventures. Um, what reason did they give you in terms of why they wanted to be the lead investor?
Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky that we're supported by a number of industry specific VCs. So Zakuwa obviously being our lead investor. Like these are firms that just focus on construction tech. So they know the industry inside out. They know the problems that are being faced, and it just makes a huge difference as working in this space, which is more specialist, more technical. Having investors who like really understand the landscape and understand the problems. Zakua's mandate specifically is to support startups and entrepreneurs that are transforming the built environment. And so, I think with us, they just like that we're tackling such a big problem, a problem that they see as foundational, and just such a key uh, problem to solve as we move to, the next iteration of what the construction and engineering industry looks like.
When we look at Algoma, how would you say that Algoma differentiates itself from other like prop tech platforms? I guess particularly in terms of target audience and feature set today.
Yeah, I mean, I think one key decision that we took pretty early on was to focus on real estate developers themselves. I think like a lot of platforms go after like architects, engineers, other people in the supply chain. We took a decision pretty early on to focus on real estate developers. And the reason for that is one, uh, fundamentally, they're the ones that benefit when projects are faster and lower cost. Like they're the ones that really benefit. And so they're the ones who you've got to provide the solution to. And specifically, like within that developer class, we're going after mid-sized developers, which we normally class as, these firms that have 15 people or less in them. And they tend to be like focused on a specific geography. And the reason we're targeting them is one, they're sort of the backbone of US housing supply. Development is a very like fragmented marketplace, there's this huge long tail of these mid-sized developers, and they're really acutely feeling this pain. They're often relying on a very manual, slow supply chain, don't have maybe the tools or the teams that some of the big players have. And so they're the ones who, initially will benefit the most from a solution such as Algoma's.
How would you say Algoma's contributing to innovation in sustainable construction in particular? And is there any like recent recognition that you've received in this particular space?
Sustainability is sort of a key value for us. We've been awarded sort of two key sustainability grants. They're called the New York Mass Timber Studio and the Georgia Mass Timber Studio. They were predominantly set up to incentivize the use of mass timber, which is this form of engineered wood, super strong and fire resistant, and to incentivize its use as a key structural material. And so with some of the projects and developments that Algoma is working on, we use this material. And by the key to having a platform like Algoma is that it gives developers the power to try out different scenarios early on in the process, really understand like what are the benefits of using different types of materials, more sustainable materials. And that's really how we can fundamentally improve sustainability long run in the construction industry, by showing developers the benefits early on in their process, and for them to be able to evaluate not just mass timber, but a number of sustainable materials and processes that they can bring into their project.
When we let's like shift focus a little bit to pre-construction. I would love to hear, the specific problem or I guess pain points in pre-construction that Algoma aims to address, and really how the platform improves decision-making speed and accuracy in that particular space.
Yeah, totally. So, the problems that we hear from developers is one, it's very hard to understand the restrictions on the site. Like, what is the zoning? It's obviously often buried in zoning code. You need the consultants to kind of like consolidate that information. So Algoma provides that information automatically to the developer based on the site address that you search. Then it's understanding, okay, what is the site capacity of the site? Like, okay, based on that zoning, how big can I build? What if I change the zoning? Like, what is the capacity of this site based on that zoning? So through that address and the Algoma platform, you can understand basically how much you're going to be able to build on that platform. You can pull in rent comps. You can look at buildings surrounding it and see the kind of rents that you would be able to charge for a project. And you can also see like demographics of the area. What is supply and demand in the area? All of the information and criteria that normally a developer would spend weeks and weeks collecting using a whole group of consultants. You can do it in the Algoma platform from the address, and it moves you through all of those steps till at the end of it, you have a project that's ready to be moved forward for internal approval and permitting.
I would love to hear a little bit about why Algoma chose to focus on small and mid-sized developers specifically. I know you were going into some of this a little bit earlier in the show, but like rather than focus on those large institutional players, and then I guess what types of projects these developers that are those small mid-sized developers are typically involved in, just because our audience wants to know more.
Yeah, totally. So we picked them really, one, because there's a lot of them. There's this huge tail of developers that there's a lot go after them. They're typically building single family home developments or multiple single family homes on a site, or multifamily, smaller multifamily apartment buildings. And we definitely want to get to the larger institutional players. But I think a lot of those mid-sized developers, they don't have the big centralized teams that can do huge amounts of analysis manually, look at construction costs and do scenarios. They're kind of, very 1-man to 10-man shops, basically. And they have a lot of capital. They're doing like multi-million-pound projects, but they're short on resources and time, basically. And so they are really looking for solutions that can massively improve their efficiency, allow them to evaluate, hundreds of sites, and to really iterate on it. Because if you look at a developer's like point of view, it's a huge commitment to take a site forward. They are committing themselves to that particular site for the next 1 to 2 years potentially, and so getting that decision right is really important. And to make sure you're getting that decision right, you want to be able to look at lots of sites. You want to be able to run lots of scenarios, and you really want to get like the best information that you can, the highest quality information, in order to make that decision.
What's something you know now? I'd love to just kind of focus on just some random things that kind of come to mind after hearing you talk a little bit. What's something you know now that you wish you knew when you were first starting the company?
I don't know.
If you had to name one thing, I know there's like lots of thoughts that go into mine, but
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky one because like it feels like things are just like moving so fast in the sense that you've got macro shifts from tariffs to interest rates. Like all of these things are moving, it seems almost like on a weekly basis. And then on the other side, you're getting these like massive technological improvements in like foundational AI models and how they're getting used. And so like you have to constantly sort of be on top of all of these issues because they all fundamentally affect the the business that you're creating and your customers in particular. So it's hard to pick one. I mean, I think like uh, being able to see where the technology of these like foundational AI models was going to go like early on would have been like an incredible thing to have and foresight. But unfortunately, hard to predict.
yeah, it's I was talking with someone the other day and we were just laughing. It really doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? We said if you went away for 2 weeks and shut off your phone and came back, you'd have to like get back up to speed a little bit because so much would probably have changed in that 2 weeks. It's like this has never happened in for like a long time, right? Maybe even in history, where technology is moving at such a fast pace that you could be lost after 2 weeks if you weren't staying up to date on the latest models and what was happening. Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson for like startups, for big firms. Like you just have to be so agile. You really have to have your ear to the ground on everything that's happening, and not be afraid to update and change things very quickly.
Yeah. Um, what's been the most fun part of starting this business?
Um, I think just working with customers on real life projects, I think is always like the most rewarding and the most fun. Like getting feedback from them on how we're improving their timelines, how we're ultimately getting to like better decisions for them. I think that's certainly like the most rewarding thing of the whole process. Like I love the part of my job that's actually spent with customers, and working on like the real world problems that they're encountering, every day.
What would be something that you wish was created that you have no interest in actually building, but you've kind this is so I talk with a lot of founders and it's one of my favorite questions to now ask is like, what is something that you've noticed that there needs to be a solution for, but you have no interest in ever addressing? And this is something that like this isn't something you put on the back burner, right? Oh, I can do it because chances are someone's going to solve it eventually. Is there anything that fits? The answer can be like, I don't know right now. That's totally fine too. But I've gotten some cool kind of answers.
That is a really good question. I mean, I have no idea what the solution to this is. Um, but like if you look at construction, you've got the pre-construction, which is like fundamentally like a digital asset in a lot of ways, and like we are getting really good at that. We've got AI. There's going to be like huge improvements into that space and making it really efficient, and I hope like Algoma will be like a big part of that. The actual like construction itself, like, and you look at the macro trends there with aging population, less people entering the construction labor force, like finding a way to actually like build the buildings, the physical construction on site. And there's a lot of clever smart people looking at this and building robotics and things, but I think that is an area of like the actual on site like physical building. And there's different streams of people, 3D printing, robotics that people are looking at. That's an area that I'm watching with interest. I don't think we as Algoma are going to go there. But it will be super interesting to see like who wins there and what are the solutions that get created in that space.
I kind of switching the question a little bit, but still along the same lines. What are a few companies that like outside of you that you're cheering on or you have interest in? They don't have to be obviously competitors or anything like that, but like, well, you wouldn't be cheering for them anyhow. Like healthy competition, sure, but outside of what you're doing, like, are there any companies that come to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe like continuing in that sphere, there's Icon who are doing, the 3D printing construction space. I think that's like one that's been pretty interesting. And we're watching and have been kind of like watching with interest. Um, I think that's like one good example of ones that we're cheering on.
Love it. Last thing, where can people learn more about you and about Algoma?
You can head to the website. It's www.algoma.co, just CO at the end. You can join the waitlist for the platform to get early access. If you're a real estate developer, currently the platform's open to a select group of developers, and if you sign on the waitlist, you'll be able to get early access. So that's the best place to find us and to sign up there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Look forward to future conversations and best of luck with everything.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, Jared, and thanks for having me.